Hey, this is Notser, and we're looking at commander skills. You might call it 2.0, because we've already done this once. 0.5.3 made so many changes that it has to be done again. We are in the Iowa on the map Two Brothers. I am rocking the premium camo. No, it's not worth it. I just bought it because why not? Yeah, why not? So that's going to be in the background. Since we are watching in Iowa, let's start off with US battleships. We are going to start with the understanding that you have 15, or you're targeting each level. I will discuss other skills that are viable, but not as important to me. And that is the key word, to me. You can have a different opinion than me, and that's completely fine. So, situation awareness. I just believe so much in this skill. Having confirmed information is so helpful to my playstyle. I know if an aircraft's scouting me. I know if I'm scouted by a ship. I understand if it's a destroyer or a concealment build cruiser because they're not visible to me. There's something out there ominously hunting me. I just love the skill. For my level 2, expert marksman, faster turret traverse, pretty self-explanatory. Battleships deal with this the most of any line. You have to get your guns on target to use them. It's the best level 2. For level 3, superintendent. It provides an extra heal charge. That's all that you care about. It allows you to survive even longer, and it allows you to perform your role as a tank. And yes, you are a tank. You're not a sniper. Just because you have the longest range doesn't mean you're all the way at the back. That just means you have the benefit to fire outside of most ranges. You shouldn't target that strategy. At least I'm not targeting that with my US Battleship build. For level 4, I'm going to take manual AA, and I'm doing this because battleships are usually the focus of aircraft, and it just increases the damage your large caliber AA guns do. Advanced firing training is very viable as well. It also buffs your secondary range, which is really nice, but let's be honest, a lot of secondary gun ranges are pretty awful. If a target is that close to you, you are in a very, very, very tense situation, and you should be very careful. Survival expert just doesn't give a large percentage health increase when you compare it to a destroyer taking the same skill. I just don't like it when I have 79,000 hit points. 3,600 isn't a lot. I'm going to die to that torpedo strike. If I can kill off the squadron faster, I have a better opportunity. Now, if there are absolutely no aircraft whatsoever, then survival expert is probably the most universal useful, but even still, I'd probably use advanced firing training for the secondary gun range increase. For the level 5, concealment. I love the idea that you can be stealthier, you can ambush the targets, you can drop off the radar. It is so useful to my playstyle. Another viable level 5 could be the manual secondary or jack of all trades. However, I just don't like how small of an impact they give you. Concealment is always on, and it just is always useful. It really is. I love it. So skills that I would take once I got more than 15, basic survivability, basic firing training, and maybe last stand. We haven't crossed that bridge quite yet, so I don't really know for sure exactly what I want at the super end game with my commander skill. Now that's the US Battleship. We're going to go right into the Japanese Battleship. Now notice that it's completely different, mostly, and that's because variety, purely out of variety. All of these ships have strengths and weaknesses. The secondary gun range on Japanese battleships is extremely far, and for that reason, it is viable and it is comfortable to have your secondary gun range exceed 10 kilometers. So this build is worth the time invested, in my opinion, on a Japanese battleship, where you have that extra range. But for me personally, I'm going to run with my US Battleship build. I really like concealment. I really like it. First skill for the secondary is the basic firing training. It increases the DPS that your secondaries and your AA do. So it's very helpful whenever you're trying to min-max your secondaries. Expert Marksman, still necessary for every single battleship. No matter what build, you will be using your main battery on your secondary battery build. That is a bonus. It isn't your primary mean of destroying enemy ships. Please do not treat it as such. For my level 3 Superintendent, the heal is so impactful. There really isn't anything else that stands out at level 3 that's worth your time in a battleship. Now, here is another skill that's pretty different. Advanced firing training, because we want that secondary gun range. We really want to enhance everything about secondaries. Advanced firing training also gives you about 80% of the power of manual AA. So you're still protecting yourself better than if you were not to take a AA protective build. Survival expert, I just don't like it. You have too much health. The final skill, manual secondary. It's pretty much the entire reason for this build. And honestly, if your secondaries cannot get to 10 kilometers, don't run this build. I just can't see the use in 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometer guns. You will be using your main battery for 90%. I would not invest 10% of my power into a build that's all-encompassing the secondaries. But if you can start to get out to an extreme range, you can impact a lot of the game. Other skills, basic survivability, situation awareness, last stand, and the incoming shell warning. Those are pretty much the only skills you can touch if you've spent all of these skill points to get all the way up to level 5. We're going to transition to the cruisers for the Japanese, and situation awareness. I just love it, especially on cruisers and destroyers. It should be your first skill that you get. So much information. You know when you're scouted, you know when you're not. You've heard it before. Expert marksman, faster turret traverse. A lot of the Japanese guns actually traverse pretty slow, so this will benefit you a lot. For the level 3 superintendent, it gives you more charges for your aircraft and defensive fire. Plus, at tier 9, you also get more charges on heal. You get so much value with this skill. Why would you not take it? For my level 4 demolition expert. Why demolition expert? Where the Japanese are known for HE, and all their 203mm guns will have 20% chance to light the target on fire when you take this skill. It's a good example of a skill that was chosen for variety, but you will benefit from it. Don't get me wrong, the Japanese do a lot of HE damage. It's worth it. The level 5 concealment. It's so powerful to drop your ship to 10 kilometer detection. Why would you not pick this up? You can invisifire at super high tier with the combination of the extra gun range modules. Other skills that I would take once you've earned 15, I would get basic survivability. You will be lit on fire a lot. I would probably get last stand next, because as a Japanese, I do lose steering and propulsion more often than I like. And because last stand is so powerful, I would probably pick it over basic firing training for the Japanese. For the United States cruisers, it's going to be just slightly different. Everything's pretty much the same for the same reasons, except for level 4. You will have advanced firing training. The AA platform of the US cruisers is dominant. I'm going to make it even more dominant. You are going to provide AA support for your team. I want range over manual AA because you're not going to be the focus of aircraft carriers. They're going to go after battleships and other aircraft carriers first. Having that extra range allows you to deny more territory to the enemy aircraft and to protect your teammate at a longer range. It's very useful for that particular scenario. Now, other skills that you might take in the US Cruiser, basic firing training. I might take this over basic survivability, but I honestly want both of those because you really want to be that AA destroyer. You want to be so feared by aircraft carriers that they don't want to come near you. And this provides the variety that I really enjoy. If I want to go out and burn someone down, I play the Japanese cruiser. If I want to go provide AA support, I play the American cruiser. Now, for the German cruiser line, I chose Survival Expert. I chose it because I wanted variety. I have every line. If I have to counter aircraft, I'm going to pull my American. If I feel like there's a lot of battleships and I need to do a lot of fire damage, then I'm going to pull my Japanese. So what does that leave for the Germans? Well, they have AP and long range. I envisioned in my mind that I would pull my Germans if I wanted a really tanky cruiser that could dish out a ton of damage at range. I could also see myself picking up manual AA for the very reason that the range increase is so substantial. You will most likely be around battleships. The manual AA is going to increase your DPS, and you'll be able to focus down those torpedo bombers, protect your battleships. Advanced firing training is just as good, probably, but this is purely for variety. I'm looking at, I've got too many ships, I need a reason to pull them. Now, those are the cruisers. I'm not going to talk about the Soviet cruisers because they're not in-game, or the Royal Navy cruisers. We're going to move on to destroyers. So, as a destroyer, just recap, situation awareness is so vitally important. It allows you to know when you're spotted, when you're not. You could be extra sneaky, and that's the reason I take it. On them all. For the level 2, expert marksman. And I'm doing this because quite a few Soviet destroyers traverse very slowly with their guns, and this will help compensate for that weakness. Some of the Soviet destroyers can get by with last stand, like the Udaloy. The Udaloy's upgraded turrets traverse at 9 seconds. That's more than enough speed. You don't need expert marksman at that point. Having last stand would be beneficial. You will be taking damage, and to be able to not have to use damage control as often is useful. We take Superintendent. The torpedo speed is just not viable. You're going to be using your smoke to fire from it, protect yourself. Getting another charge is 100% the best course you could take, and I'm sticking to it. Superintendent, level 3. For the level 4, advanced firing training. And this is partly to get variety again. There are some great level 4s, but for me, I have a great brawler in my US Destroyer line. It's going to take Survival Expert. For my Soviet, it's going to be super long range. And advanced firing training is perfect for that. Plus, it can increase the AA range, and they have some pretty good AA guns, considering they're a destroyer. For my final, I'm going to pick up Concealment. Now, this is pretty controversial with some people, but for me, the destroyer is gathering intel and ambushing. Having better concealment directly impacts my ability to play a destroyer, and quite honestly, there's not a lot of level 5s that I like. They're just not as impactful to me. You might get preventative maintenance. Because the turrets are so fragile, I just would rather avoid confrontation, and concealment is perfect for that. For the additional skills, I would take basic firing training. I would prefer last stand / expert marksman over basic survivability. Your damage control is up a lot of the times that you can deal with the fires that will happen, even the floods. But if your steering or your propulsion go out in a vitally important situation, you really would prefer that it doesn't completely cripple your ship. For the Japanese, we're going to go all torpedoes, baby. We got the lower cooldown on torpedoes for level 2. Again, situation awareness should go without saying. It's amazing. You take it. For the level 3, the faster torpedoes. And this is only viable when you can outrange your detectability with your torpedoes comfortably. I tried this on a kamikaze, and I was able to outrange it by 200 meters. That's not enough. You really would like to have about 1 kilometer of safe zone before the skill is viable. If you don't, you want to take Superintendent, of course. It's an amazing skill for destroyers, highly recommended, But those Japanese destroyers, those sneaky shimikazes, those kageros, can really wreck with the extra torpedo speed. And that's where I'm targeting with this particular build. For the level 4, I go Survivability Expert. And I go this because it's such a high percentage of your health as a destroyer. Why would you not? You're constantly taking damage. I've already proven twice that it is the reason I survived and helped my team win the game. 2 for 2 is pretty good. There's a lot of value in this. You're not going to fire your guns that much. You're not really going to benefit from the Demolition Expert, Advanced Firing Training. You just aren't. So I really like Survivability Expert for my Japanese destroyers. For the level 5, we get Concealment. Self-explanatory. You're a destroyer, you need to hide. There's nothing else. You take this. You take this every single time. For extra skills, I would save to get Last Stand, because it's just so awesome. I would consider saving again if you can, and get Expert Marksman. Faster turret traverse will definitely help a Japanese destroyer. If you need to get a level 1, basic firing training, basic survivability, they're not very good for a class that doesn't really use their guns that much, but they'll help. And for the US destroyers, it is all bruiser, baby. You get Last Stand, because the turret traverse is so great in US destroyers. Having that extra survivability is vitally important. We get Superintendent. We hide in the smoke, we fire. We're very good at that. You could pick up the torpedo speed for something like the gearing, but that's just not what you do, in my opinion. You've got to be that bruiser, that bully. You take out enemy destroyers. You dish out pain and suffering on them. You protect your team. And with that understanding, we're going to pick up Survival Expert. You're going to be in close proximity to the enemy destroyers. You're going to take a lot of damage. Extra health is always welcomed. Others would probably take Advanced Firing Training, and that is definitely viable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but for my strategy, I would prefer the extra health plus variety. I already have a long-range gun-focused destroyer build. It's my Soviet destroyers. The Americans kind of toe that line between everything. We get concealment, of course. You get concealment, okay? You want to hide from the enemy. You want to ambush them. The American destroyers are great for that. Now, extra skills I would get, honestly, I would probably get basic firing training, and instead of Expert Marksman, I might get the torpedo reload, because torpedoes are a significant part of the US destroyer gameplay. And with really fast turret traverse, Expert Marksman doesn't really appeal to me at all. And that's completely fine. If you find that you just can't handle the turret traverse of the Nicholas, well, then you pick it up. My threshold for turret traverse on a destroyer is it sub 10 seconds. If it's 15, 20 seconds, you really do feel the sluggishness of the turret traverse. But if it takes you like 8 seconds to go 180 degrees, those puppies are going to be right where you need them 99% of the time. Alright, so we're going to do aircraft carriers too, because why not? So the first aircraft carriers, the Japanese aircraft carriers. Well, I am going to focus on the idea that the Japanese aircraft carriers are going to be unseen. So we're going to get situation awareness. I just really like the idea that you know when an enemy destroyer is coming up on you. You can react a little bit quicker and get your aircraft out, scouting, looking for them, maybe counter them. That's my reasoning for getting situation awareness. And also variety. The US aircraft carrier plays a little bit differently. You'll see that build. For the level 2, we get the torpedo rearm. It really is the only skill you can take in an aircraft carrier at level 2. For good or for worse. For the level 3, we're actually going to get the faster torpedo. And this speed increase does impact the torpedo bombers. It's honestly the most broken skill in the game for Japanese aircraft carriers. Now, For the level 4, we're going to get the survivability and servicing time for aircraft. It's universally good. There isn't really a level 4 that you would take over this. Maybe you would take AA range, but there's not really anything you take. Your aircraft are everything to an aircraft carrier. You want to have better survivability and to be able to service them faster. For the level 5, this is probably breaking some hearts. We're getting concealment again, and here's why. The aircraft focused skill, air supremacy, increases your fighter and your bomber squadrons by 1. Now, in a vacuum, that sounds awesome. Whoa! As a Japanese, I have 5 fighters and 5 dive bombers. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the problem is, the bread and butter of the Japanese don't get any benefit. The torpedo bombers. You do not get extra aircraft loaded on the aircraft carrier, so you're going to lose aircraft faster when you lose an entire squadron. It's very risky. The Japanese already aren't very tanky, so you need to be extra careful. You would run out of aircraft very fast if you weren't taking care of these squadrons as well as you need to. For that reason, I really like concealment. You can hide much closer. You will be targeted less. Same reasoning for all the other ships that I've chosen to take it on. And variety. Really, I like having different aircraft carriers. Different ships play completely differently. Now, skills that I would take, I would probably take basic survivability and the rear gunner protection. But that's really all that is available for the aircraft carrier. There's not a lot of skills that are within reach if you go the full 15. Last stand might be useful. The warning that you're taking fire, don't really think it's useful because whenever you're scouted, especially by a ship, you're going to be taking the primary fire of pretty much everyone in range because you're an aircraft carrier. Now for the final one, the US aircraft carrier. It's going to be played a little bit differently. It's going to be a focus on fighters and dive bombers. We're going to get survivability as our first skill because I expect to be seen more often. We need to fight those fires and be able to service those aircraft a little bit quicker. We're not relying on complete stealth like the Japanese. For our level 2, unfortunately, this is all we can take. It isn't that helpful in a full fighter or a full dive bomber build. This is kind of an oversight. By wargaming, the level 2 just doesn't have a lot of attraction to the direction that they're going with the US carriers and the focus on dive bombers and fighters. For my level 3 dogfighting expert, if we're going to pull fighters, we want to be the best in the sky, and that's exactly what this provides. You could also use the torpedo range speed, but since I'm going for variety and I want these ships to feel different, we're going to stick with dogfighting expert. You could take this in the Japanese, however, I just wouldn't pass up that speed increase. It's so great. For our level 4, we're taking aircraft survivability. This is universal. More health, and they service faster. Everyone's going to take it. Again, I don't really think any other level 4 is viable for aircraft carriers. Now for the level 5, we are going to pick up air supremacy. Because we are focusing so much on fighters and dive bombers, this will increase our ability to protect ourselves and do more damage on the dive. It is dangerous. You are risking more aircraft per strike, and you could justify that you don't want to do that and take concealment. That's completely fine. Concealment scales, so it's more beneficial to aircraft carriers. For the extra abilities, rear gunner, situation awareness. You also have access to basic firing training that will help your AA a little bit. You do come under fire a lot in an aircraft carrier, and I would love to see a aircraft carrier build where you're just being so mean to the enemy aircraft carrier. You're going anti-aircraft and fighters, and that's all. You just increase your range, your effectiveness, and just ask him to come kill you, and he's gonna have a rude awakening when he does. So, you sat through 25 minutes of me talking about all of these skills, and the most important thing, it's your game. play it the way you want to play it. I'm just telling you what I've tried to focus on, what I've tried to target. I really like variety in my game. I think wargaming likes variety. I think the Soviet cruiser line is going to be the light cruiser line. I don't think they're going to put in light cruisers for a really long time in other lines. And that's pretty exciting. I give up a Mogami, I give up a Cleveland, I give up all of these light cruisers that I really love, but what I get is an entire line that's focused on light cruisers. That will be really interesting. The detectability is an issue with the Soviet cruiser line. We'll have to compensate with concealment, we always do, but it's going to be really easy to see them. I believe their Tier 10 has a detectability of something like 18 kilometers base. That's awful. It's like a battleship. So we're going to have to see how it works out. The stats aren't final. For the Royal Navy, I'm of course excited for the Royal Navy. The Warspite is the only ship in the game for the Royal Navy, and it's not exactly the ship that speaks to me. It's a slow battleship with slow turret traverse, and it takes a lot of damage because it's supposed to heal through all that damage. Well, that's great and all, but I'm so squishy. I'm really excited to see the Royal Navy cruisers. I'm sure a lot of you are excited as well, especially my friends in Britain. Now, what could the cruisers be? Well, we have HE-focused Japanese with pretty awesome torpedoes, by the way. That's kind of a bonus. The Americans are jack-of-all-trades with AA. They give up velocity, which is very important, obviously, but they make up for the protection that they should provide against aircraft carriers in a game where aircraft carriers actually participate. The Germans have fantastic AP, fantastic range. They really do have a great identity. I love playing my German cruisers. The Soviet cruisers, or light cruisers, of course, the Kutuzev, already in the game. It focuses on AP for the small caliber, and it does it pretty well in certain situations. It is fragile, and you have to maneuver a lot. I don't know if that'll be the identity of the Soviet cruiser line, but if it's going to be a light cruiser line and it's going to be AP focused, then I would like the Royal Navy cruiser line to be HE focused and light cruiser. That would be really cool. That is exactly what I love about the Mogami 155mm guns. It is an HE focused light cruiser. It devastates everything in the right hands. If the Royal Navy cruiser line is anywhere near the Mogami, it will be my all-time favorite line. Don't know that it's going to be the case, but it is exciting if they choose to go in that direction. I really hope that they maintain the variety. I hate how homogenized so many games, and specifically World of Tanks, has become. They feel so similar. Why would I level through one line when I've already done the other that's exactly the same or near identical? Come on, Royal Navy cruisers, please be different. Please don't feel like anything I've ever played. I will love you forever. So, that was a lot of information, Notser. Yes, it was. I apologize. Hopefully it was good information. Hopefully I explained my reasoning so you can decide to try it out or completely ignore it. Whatever. I'm fine with it. The video should have links in the description for a particular nation/class combination. Probably doesn't matter to you right now, though. You watched the whole thing, and thank you for it. Hopefully the Io was entertaining. Hopefully the Izumo was entertaining. But spoiler alert, I'm going to die. And that enemy aircraft carrier really did a good job lighting me on fire. You noticed I took out the Iowa's guns. He has a really hard time dealing with my ship once I did that. But we just didn't have the precise enough aim for that last salvo to citadel him more than 3 times. If I would have held my fire probably half a second longer, we probably would have killed him, because I think the first 2 guns hit above the waterline and had no chance of citadeling. As far as this game's concerned, It's a loss. He's not going to be able to take out the battleship. He certainly is not going to find the enemy cruiser. And we end the game in a loss. We earn over 400,000 credits. We get high caliber, 2 kills, 6 citadels, 1,799 base XP. Look at that Kutuzov, man. He just hard carried. We did around 160,000 points of damage. If you're still watching, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.